One of the things that's really important about hypochlorous acid is that it stays within a pH range that's healthy to skin too. So you don't want it to go below like a 4 pH. You certainly don't want it to be above a 7. This stuff is amazing. Not only does it work for cuts, but it's bug bites, it's sunburns. It doesn't sting.
Yeah.
On the cosmetic side, again, I love the molecule and there's a lot of great products out there, and I've just been amazing to see how popular hypochlorous has gotten, especially over the last 10 years. So it's funny, my introduction to hypochlorous was kind of similar to you. I used to work in the hospital side, more on the commercialization of new products, also in regenerative medicine. And I owned a company that would help products launch into the hospital space, and a lot of what we were doing were really expensive biologic regenerative tissues, and they were using them for things like diabetic foot ulcers, venous stasis ulcers, so where a patient was vascularly compromised and their wounds wouldn't heal. And a medical device company came to me and said, we want to launch this technology called hypochlorous acid into the hospital side. And that was probably about 10, 12 years ago. And they explained to me the science, and like any new product, I'm doing all the clinical research and I'm reading about it and understanding the price point. And these expensive biologics are thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And this is relatively very inexpensive. And I'm going, wow, this is a really powerful technology and really inexpensive. And then, it's funny, you never market this in the hospital side very often, but it was natural and non-toxic too. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so long story short, I helped them launch it into the hospital side. But I was an avid surfer at the time that would go on these boat trips to the Maldives and to Hawaii and reef cut staff, everything. And so I started to take samples along with me everywhere I was going. And I'd hand it out to friends, and you just watch this kind of evangelical kind of like, this stuff is amazing. Not only does it work for cuts, but it's bug bites, it's sunburns, and
it doesn't sting.
It doesn't sting.
Yeah.
And so it became this like, just watch it catch on with all of my friends and all the athletes I was hanging out with. And I went back to the medical device company and I said, what are you doing with your over-the-counter indication? And they said, nothing, we're going to focus on the hospital. And so I decided I'm going to take this over the counter. It has the same safety profile as saline solution too. So It's a really safe product. It's a really powerful antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral without having any of those kind of side effects that you get out of toxic products. And so we launched Active Skin Repair now 10 years ago. Funny enough is, because we were so involved in the action sports community at the beginning, Hawaii was one of the first places that we launched. We got on the World Surf League.
I bought it at a surf shop.
Yeah.
That's where I found it. It was like right on the counter next to the, sunblock. So.
The whole Pro Tour still uses it all in their medical tents. And we got into professional mountain biking and all of these things. But it wasn't until probably right around like 2019, 2020, when COVID was happening, that we really watched it catch on with moms as a better for you. And these days, almost all of our customers are moms looking for better, natural, non-toxic solutions. And like you were saying, there's also popped up a lot in the skincare side of things.
And the thing that I was researching for this episode, and I have been hesitant to spray it on my face before I put on the rest of my skincare, because I am very concerned about the skin barrier and the microbiome, and I didn't want to disrupt that because I worked so hard to heal my skin barrier. But it only kills the bugs we don't want. Talk about that, how it preserves the good guys.
It's selective in how it's killing off that bad bacteria without affecting the microbiome. And so you can get something that's going and killing that bad bacteria without killing the good bacteria, which again, it's, the body is such a powerful mechanism, right? And so when we can harness that and be able to use that topically as opposed to synthetic chemicals or antibiotics, it's, just a really great, especially first line therapy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I would say too is what makes Active Skin Repair unique is we are FDA cleared to be used on open skin. And we have to go, we have a unique proprietary formulation. And one of the things that's really important about hypochlorous acid is that it stays within a pH range that's healthy to skin too. So you don't want it to go below like a 4 pH. You certainly don't want it to be above a 7. And so being able to stabilize it and get it to the right parts per million of hypochlorous, because you don't want too much hypochlorous in it. You want it just around 100 to 200 ppm, which gets you all that antimicrobial without any of the kind of downside of it. And then keeping it between a 5 to 7 pH is really important. And with our formulation, because what we know is for 2 years, it stays very specific in that pH range. And so what you can get with a lot of contract manufactured hypochlorous is you can get a pH range that's moving quite a bit.
Okay. So it's really, you go to the store now like Ulta and you look at all the skincare and somebody seems to have a hypochlorous acid product, and rarely is it in isolation. It's usually in a mix. And we were talking about the problem with that before we started rolling.
Yep. And it's just on the cosmetic side, again, I love the molecule and there's a lot of great products out there. And I've just been amazing to see how popular hypochlorous has gotten, especially over the last 10 years. Some of the problems with the formulation is we have a research and development department. We'll always bring them in and we'll test them. And a lot of times what you'll get is the hypochlorous, because it's not, the formulation isn't done correctly, it's not stabilized correctly, it's just not active. There's no active hypochlorous, or even worse, it might be at a lower pH that could actually cause some irritation to your skin as well. That just doesn't have that regulatory threshold that an FDA cleared product like ours has to go through. And what we do is every time before we produce a product, we test it to make sure it falls within that pH range, that it has the proper parts per million to it, and we know it's going to stay within that range for 2 years. So there's a 2-year shelf life that we keep on it. And that's one of the quick ways that I can always tell on a hypochlorous whether they've gone through that, is to see if there's an expiration date, a lot number on it, things that tells me somebody's doing the testing that really knows that there's a proper formulation to it.
So if it's in a serum with a bunch of other ingredients, or it's hanging out, in a lotion or in some other product, the chances of it, because you said it's really unstable when it's not properly formulated.
It's a really unstable molecule, and so to date, nobody's been able to recipe it with other ingredients. And so it doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's a pretty telltale sign for me when I see added ingredients in there that somebody just doesn't understand the science of hypochlorous. And every time we've tested them when they have other ingredients, there's no active hypochlorous in it.
I was cleaning my counter off with it one time, and my husband was like, "You're just putting water on the counter," and he wanted he wanted something that was scented. And my friend and I were talking about this before we came over. Like, they want a scented they want something to smell like Lysol. They don't believe that this is going to, and it has antiviral properties too, right? And so we can use this in a variety of ways. And it's like you said, it's not going to disrupt the skin barrier. It's not got a pH that's going to disrupt the skin barrier, and it's not going to sting, and it's not going to, you can put it, you kind of buzz through that, but being able to put something into an open wound is a huge deal, especially if you need to apply some of those regenerative treatments you were talking about, or even any like burns, open wounds. That's a really challenging, because I've worked with those too clinically, and like it is a challenging place to be able to, because you are locking in sometimes infection, especially if that wound is over 6 hours old. And so to have something that has all of those properties is kind of a big win.
Yep, and I think that's for us in active skin repair, it's the same medical grade formulation, same process. Everything goes through the same manufacturing process that goes into a hospital surgical procedure. So if you are using it on open skin, it's the same process that we use for our surgical products that are being used in really kind of intensive care burn units. They get used in neonatal intensive care units as well. So that safety and that efficacy is going to be there, where you just don't get that with a lot of the other over-the-counter products. But it's a great product. And when one of the ways that it gets used in wound care centers is it also disrupts biofilms. So when you get that bacterial colonization,
talk about
it's
that.
like a 7 to 8 log reduction with our formulation. And so it can actually, because with a biofilm, you're getting that EPS matrix, right? So you get that, and it protects a lot of that planktonic bacteria from being killed. And so what hypochlorous acid can actually do is break up that EPS matrix and disrupt that biofilm and kill that planktonic bacteria. Hypochlorous acid's the same molecule your white blood cells produce. So if you get cut, scrape, burned, any type of skin damage, your body's natural immune response is to send white blood cells to that injury.
I would deal with open wounds, and one of the things that I did was literally massage PRP.
Everything goes through the same manufacturing process that goes into a hospital. If you are using it on open skin, you know it's the